Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Females Thriving Over 30 podcast. Today, I'm by myself because Jasmine is living her best life in Spain on holiday. Well, I am here in Spain as well, not on holiday, and I am boiling here, and I wish I was with Jasmine at the beach or at the pool, living my best life too. So today you just have me on the podcast. It's been a very, very, very fun week celebrating my dad's retirement. We spent a weekend of like super high temperatures here in Spain were like 42 degrees. That was way too much. I've heard in the UK is also very, very hot. So we'll see what happens and what waits for me when I am back next week. So today we are going to be talking about postpartum and what I will say kind of like the unspoken truth of what postpartum is. I believe there is not that much visibility about what happens after you have a baby. There is a lot of talk and a lot of celebration when you get pregnant and during your pregnancy, baby showers and things like that. But there is not that many people that actually talks to you about what happens after you had the baby. So today we have with us Emily Livet that is going to talk to us about her experience with postpartum in the hopes that this will help women that might be going through the same thing or that are pregnant and they don't know what might come. So welcome to the podcast, Emily.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
I'm so excited that you reach out and wanted to talk about this topic because, as I said, not many people talk about it, and I think we need to start shedding light on this type of things. So for our listeners that don't know you, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, of course. So I am almost 30, so I'm coming up to my 30th year. I had my beautiful baby boy last year. He's just turned a year old, and I cannot believe how quickly that year has gone. Prior to having a baby, I was a project manager working in London, so very corporate life. I've been used to it. I haven't gone back to work, so now I'm a stay-at-home mum, and it's crazy to look at where I am now to where I was even 18 months ago, like how having like the impact of having a baby and how much it does change and how your priorities change. And I do think talking about postpartum is such an important thing because, as you said, everyone gets excited about the new baby and the bump, and they want to see you get big and they want to see you get chunky and they love it. And then as soon as baby's born, it's sort of like all the attention goes on baby and you feel very like, okay, like, yeah, I think it's really important to talk to. There's some things that I wish I knew, and there's things that I've learned that I would like anyone who's looking at having kids, has had kids, pregnant, going through it. If I could help, as you said, just one person to feel a bit better or give them a bit of advice, some tips, then I'll be very happy with.
I mean, I think we should start with how was your delivery? Because I think that's something as well that many people don't talk about, right? I think we have that ideal idea, right? That
Yeah.
a beautiful idea of what
Yep.
giving birth is, and not everybody is going through like a very positive birth. Were you one of the a small number of people that I know that had a really positive birth, or yours was a little bit like, this is not at all how I expected this going?
So weirdly, probably a bit of the two. So I was sorry, I've got baby. The joys of postpartum. I've got baby monitor going off. So apologies if you hear a baby or any beeping. It's just my monitor.
We'll love to have an appearance
Yeah.
suddenly. It will be beautiful.
Well, yeah. Well, it might be. I don't think he's looking at going to sleep yet. But yeah. So my delivery didn't quite go how I thought. But looking back, I think I was still relatively lucky. So I was a high risk at the end, and I was meant to be induced on my due date. So at 40 weeks, I was due to be induced, and I had heard some horror stories. It's always, whenever you tell someone you've had a baby, the first thing they tell you is all the horror stories, all the things that go wrong. Their friends, cousins, wife, this happened to, and it doesn't help anyone. It's scary. And I don't want to come on here and scare anyone. I'll be truthful, but I'm not going to scaremonger anyone. But yeah, so I was high risk, and I actually went into labour 2 days before my due date. So naturally went into labour. So I was like, okay, we've got this going. Contractions started at midnight. Got the contraction like tracker out, and we was like, no, okay, we think this is the real thing, because we've had Braxton Hicks and no one knows what's going on, and everyone tells you you're going to know, but you're like, I've never done this, so how do I know? But we was like, no, okay, this feels a bit different. And they were coming thick and fast straight off the bat within 5 minutes. But I was coping. I was breathing through, and I'd done some hypnotherapy, and I had a labour comb, which was really, really helpful. If you have a labour comb, start it as soon as you get your contractions, not later on down the line. Okay. And also, if you pack a hospital bag, keep a small packet or bag of things that you're going to need out of your suitcase, because my husband in the middle of the night had to dig out our hospital bag to find my labour comb and my neck fan and all of that. So little top tip there, which I wish I'd known. And then I started bleeding, which they usually say, soon as you see red blood, come straight in. So I called the midwife, went in, and they checked me all over, and they said, oh, baby's back to back. And I was like, okay. He'd been in the perfect position the whole way through, and suddenly he twisted back to back. And naive me, because I wanted to labour at home as much as I could. Yeah. Wanted to be at home. They were like, we can give you some, we can keep you in, we can take you straight in, and we can give you some more painkillers. And I was like, no, I'd rather be at home. I was coping with the contractions. We was doing okay. And then everything ramped up. We was then in the car coming home, and back-to-back labour is more painful than normal labour, because their head's basically on your spine. So you feel every nerve in your back, and you don't, I've gone all dark, and you don't get the sort of rise and fall of a contraction. Mm-hmm. It's just kind of constant. And as soon as we got home, I was like, we should have stayed at the hospital, but we're here now, we're going through it. Laboured at home for as long as possible. It got to the point where I couldn't labour at home anymore, so went in, and I was like, I need an epidural. And that was the first one that they asked for. I didn't think I'd ever want an epidural, because the thought of a needle in your back scared me. But at this point, I was like, I'm not getting a break in these contractions. I haven't drunk, I haven't eaten, haven't slept. I need something to just help me.
Yeah. Get rid of the pain. Yeah.
Exactly. Give me a little bit of a break. So had the epidural, and that was a miraculous thing. It was great. Managed to go to sleep. I could eat, I could drink. My blood pressure came back up and everything was better. So it was like, okay. But then baby's heart rate was dropping, and they were getting ready for me to be wheeled off for a C-section, which absolutely terrified me. The doctor came in and they read you all everything that's going to happen and the risks and all of that. And my midwife, who I hugged so much when I left, she went, let's just check her and just see what she is, like, see where we are. And she checked, and obviously because I couldn't feel anything, I didn't know what was going on. And she checked and she went, I can see baby's head. Let's give her a chance to naturally deliver a baby. And within 40 minutes, baby boy was here. Absolutely fine, screaming his lungs out. And I was like, yes, it's the best noise. As soon as they start crying, straight on my chest, and I got a cuddle. So all of that part of it, okay, yes, it didn't go quite to plan, the back-to-back labour and the epidural, but I got my natural birth. I got a healthy baby boy at the end of it. So that was my delivery. The only issue I then had was I lost a lot of blood, and I couldn't, my blood pressure really, really dropped. So it took me a good probably 12 hours before I was sort of conscious. Mm-hmm. I was very much in and out of consciousness. But then once I was awake, had some food, I was like, okay, right, we're okay now. And stayed in overnight because they just wanted to assess me. Went on some iron tablets for the blood loss, and then we came home the next day. Although it wasn't exactly what I'd had planned, which was the calming water birth, and I actually wanted a home birth, but as soon as I was high risk, that wasn't a chance. Yeah. But it doesn't matter. Your babies come here how they choose to appear. So
yes.
And at the end of the day, I got my healthy, happy baby boy. So lots of fun things happened, but I still consider myself very lucky. And although it was scary, I had a very positive delivery and my baby boy was happy and healthy. So I couldn't ask for anything more than that.
Yeah, I mean, very, very lucky, because if you were, getting ready to go have a C-section and you
Yeah.
manage not to have it and have a natural delivery, it's incredible. Because I guess, yeah, like I don't think anybody really wants a C-section, but when they tell you that your baby's heart rate is dropping and is going to be dangerous, you obviously say, okay, yes, whatever,
Whatever
let's
you've
do
got.
it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, how did you expect the next few days were gonna go? Like, did you have any expectations about what postpartum was going to look like?
So I'd done a lot of research because, as you said, everyone talks you through the pregnancy book and there's pregnancy books and all of that. You have pregnancy classes, and you have the classes that tell you, how to look after baby, but there isn't really anything that tells you how to look after you. So I did just lots of research and I had a postpartum trolley and it was filled with like postpartum pads and knickers. And I had a peri bottle to help me wee because I had to have stitches. So that was fantastic. Filled with snacks, electrolytes, water,
Good.
all bits like that, because I know it's not, I can only say from my story, I was exhausted because you haven't really slept and it's a really big thing on your body and it really does take its toll. So having this trolley, it could just follow me around everywhere and I didn't have to keep getting up and getting a drink. And like, I was like, okay, I'm going to have this. And if I'm just sat, that's fine. We can have it. I know where everything is. Everything's organized. Everything's tidy. This is my little trolley. I then also had a baby trolley that was filled with nappies and a changing mat and all of that we had next to our bed to try and do a change in the middle of the night, which again, for me, I knew I had to be organised. That's what helps me stay calm. I knew I was going to be tired, so I also batch cooked lots of freezer meals. So I knew, if you've had a bad day and it's tiring, I've just got to get a freezer meal out, put it in the oven. I haven't got to waste energy on thinking, what am I going to do for dinner? What am I going to do for lunch? So I was like, okay, organise as much as I could.
That was the project manager in you, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Like, okay, right, what are the next steps? Exactly. And my husband was brilliant. He just took to being a dad a lot easier than I took to being a mum. So my expectations and what everyone tells you is it all comes naturally. You just know what to do. And the first day in hospital, I needed assistance because I wasn't fully there. So the first day, I don't really remember much. But the second day in coming home, you've suddenly got this tiny little fragile human being that you've got to look after. And I had no idea what to do. I'd never changed a nappy before. I'd never breastfed before. I'd never bottle fed before. I hadn't done anything. And they don't come with a manual. So you're like, okay. Whereas my husband's work in paediatrics, so he was like, knew how to hold a baby and knew how to bottle feed. And that's when I started being like, I feel very out of my depth. Like I unconditionally loved him and I knew I wanted to hold him and cuddle him. But doing the nappies and the bottles, I was like, this is complicated. Look, trying to breastfeed in itself is really complicated because you don't know what you're doing. Baby doesn't know what they're doing. You're both trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
And my mum and my sister were so good. And they was like, the natural mothering instinct is to love your baby. It's not a natural animal instinct to know how to change a nappy or to bottle feed. So that's kind of something you do need to learn. And it's, if you've never done it before, it's like going to a job with no experience and thinking you're going to turn up on day one and know what you're doing. And in any other part of your life, you'd never put that pressure on yourself because you're like, well, of course I don't know what I'm doing. I've never done this before. But for some reason, being a mum, you put that pressure to know everything off the bat.
Yes.
And once I kind of took that pressure off myself and was like, okay, can someone show me how to change a nappy? We had a breastfeeding consultant who help me learn how to breastfeed and that side of it, and just asking for help. And I was like, okay, actually this is okay. And you sort of start getting into your own routine, and then it does eventually become second nature because it's something you're practicing
every day. Yeah.
Every day, all day, exactly. Yeah, once I took that pressure off myself of I need to know everything right now, I found postpartum, especially the very early stages, a lot easier, because you're like, okay, now I'm not expected to know this. Like, give yourself some grace. You've never done this before. And that definitely helped me. But the first couple of days I was getting so wound up in myself, like, how do you not know how to do this? So
yeah,
it's those voices in your head that are like, you should know this, but actually, how would you?
I mean, I think it's also natural to feel that way because the amount of hormones that you have in your body at that specific moment,
Yes.
I'm pretty sure there are like loads. Or milk is coming up. I'm pretty sure that has also a lot of other extra hormones and stuff. You are, I guess you're feeling like all over the place, all
Yeah,
of the
having
different
slept.
emotions. You're feeling like I'm supposed to know how to do this, but I don't know. This thing is so tiny and small. I don't want to break it,
Yep.
right?
Yes, yes.
And then you're like, and then I don't know. Did you cry at all, like out of like frustration or like I don't know?
Yeah, no, there was many a tear shed, especially I always found it the hardest was because I had stitches, I was on regular painkillers.
Mm-hmm.
And because I was breastfeeding, I could only take them every 6 hours. So it was always that bit just before I could take my painkillers again, where I was like, everything hurts.
Mm-hmm.
And your boobs hurt because, as you said, all your milk's coming in. You're not sleeping because you're living in this 2 to 3 hour cycle. No matter what the time is, you're in this cycle, and you know you have so many jobs that need to get done before baby wakes up again. And during the day I was okay, and I would try to get outside. Once I was able to sort of walk on my own, because again, just walking to the end of my road and back was exhausting, and would make me feel lightheaded, and I'd have to take a break. So once I was able to walk a bit further, just getting outside really helped me, because you do suddenly feel like you're in a prison in your house, and you're sort of like, can't get out, like I'm in this cycle with this baby. So getting outside was, if I started to feel myself being like, I can't do this anymore, this is really like, I need a change of scenery, we'd go for a walk, and it would help him sleep as well, which helps. And it just gave me a break. You're doing something, you're moving your body, and you sort of feel like you again, but also you're like, I'm pushing the pram. Like, you've waited months and months to be that mum pushing the pram, and suddenly you're like, okay, no, you've got to remember what you did this for. And one of those is being able to push your nice new pram down the street with your tiny little newborn in it. But middle of the night, I would cry a lot.
Yeah.
Just because you're exhausted, and as
Mm-hmm.
you said, your hormones are all over the place, and I think it's very normal. I mean, ask anyone who hasn't slept for a few days if you feel slightly more emotional. They're going to be like, well, of course you do. Now, Ed, you've just had a baby. Of course you're going to feel emotional, and that's okay. And it's also okay to not feel okay and to feel overwhelmed, because you've just gone through such a life-changing experience. Of course,
Absolutely.
there's going to be some sort of
Absolutely. Yeah, I do remember like my nephew is now 1 year and 3 months old. So
oh
I do remember traveling last year to meet him like a week after he was born.
yeah
And just seeing my sister, she was just like, as soon as she saw me, like hugged me and cried and did like all of the emotions and getting to a point that, she was feeling like like crying all the time. And I was like, is she okay? Like, is she gonna have postpartum depression? Like, do we need to look for these kind of things just in case that happens? Because obviously, like, I've never seen her cry in general, right?
yeah
But
yeah
never seen her cry so much either.
yeah
So I was
yeah
like, is this normal?
yeah Yeah, and I think that's a really good point. I mean, I was so lucky with the people who I had around me, and they saw, and my friends as well were so good, and they was always checking in on me. They would send food deliveries because where
Nice.
you're feeding, I was starving. So they was like, okay, they sort of gave me some time to just be in my newborn bubble, but would just send me like brownies through the door or cookies. And I was like, oh, do you know what? That's exactly what I need. I need a nice little sweet treat. But when, like, I think I was so lucky because my sister's had a baby and she's been through it quite recently.
Mm-hmm.
That I think she was the one who could pick things up. And my husband did too, to the point where he was like, okay, not that he openly told me in too much later on, but he was like, he would be like, okay, like, let's check on this. What is she saying? What can I take away from her? Does she need, is it something you just need to go for a walk outside for a second, or is it something more? Because there is that fine line. And from someone who, so I got postpartum depression, but much later on when my son was 5-6 months old, which in my head you're told 6 weeks is when you know if you've got postpartum depression within the first 6 weeks. It's not. It goes up to the first year of baby's life.
Okay.
So when I started feeling low, and I would just cry every day, but would have no reason to cry. And it was that sort of level of just crying at everything. That's when my sister was like, okay, this isn't right because I'm crying. And she's like, okay, what do you need? And I was like, I need something, but I don't know what I need. And then she was checking on me every day and she was like, okay, maybe go to your doctor. Like, just, if you're feeling like this, just go see your doctor. And spoke to my doctor and they was like, yeah, we think we're just going to keep an eye on you. And I was very lucky with my doctors as well, that they were fantastic. But you can see how if someone's left on their own,
yes,
how quickly something that probably may not have been a big thing at the start can start spiraling into something a bit more scary.
Yeah.
And to not have someone looking out for you. So like how you looked out for your sister, and the first thing you did is, hold on, okay, right, I'm clocking this, I'm keeping an eye on her. Like, you just being aware is such a crucial thing for anyone who's got a sister or a friend or family member going through having a baby, because sometimes in your head you don't necessarily realise how different you are than someone who may haven't seen you for a couple of days or a couple of weeks. So I think it's so important to have people like you who do go, okay, let's check. Hopefully it's just something, she's just tired, she's a lot going on, but just keeping tabs and being like, okay, checking in is so important. Because it's, well, for me, it was hard to ask someone for help when,
of course,
I'm sure if your sister had been, oh, can you just make me a cup of tea? You'd have been like, yeah, of course I can. Yeah, it's so difficult because you want help, but you don't want to ask for help.
yes, yeah, I
That's
think
the
it's
tricky.
a lot to what we discussing as well the other day with the burnout generation that millennials are and stuff, right?
Yeah.
I think this is the same thing, right? We are being told, or society is telling us, like, we as women are supposed to be able to do everything. We're supposed to be able to take care of our baby, be okay, but also, like, do our own cup of tea, and you don't really need to ask for help. I think it's important to know that once you have a baby, people need to try to cater for you, especially at the very beginning, because as you said, you're exhausted, you don't know what you're doing, and you really need that help. And we shouldn't be afraid to ask for help or let us get pampered by other people around us.
Yes, because I mean, the old saying, it takes a village to raise a baby. And I mean, I completely agree with the burnout generation and everything. We're told, okay, you've got to do everything. And then we've almost got it drilled into us that, as you said, you've just got to figure it out. You can't ask for help. Asking for help is a weakness, and it's not. Because go back 1, 2, 3 generations, you'd have parents helping you out or grandparents helping you out, whereas now people, working until they're older, and people are further away because it's a lot easier to stay in contact. So some families might not necessarily all live in, you know, the same
Mm-hmm.
town, let alone the
Yep.
same country. And we've kind of lost that village that we once had. And I think it's so important to create that village somehow.
Yes.
Like to have
Yeah.
friends, someone who's around you, go to mum clubs, go to baby clubs, just have people who are close to you, who, you know, who care for you when maybe family might be a bit further away, or friends maybe are, you know, working or traveling.
Yeah.
We sort of now need to build our own village.
Yeah, I agree. And I think we should also, because I mean, this is not the first time that I heard it, of couples where the man is like, no, I'll take care of you and I'm going to do everything like that. So your mom doesn't need to stay with us, or, you know, like we just want to
Yeah.
be by ourselves. And I
Yeah.
was like, well, yes, fair enough. Like you can do that later on. But I think in the first few weeks, it's very important that the woman has someone that has done this before and is kind of like that person that you also feel safe with. So if you want your mom to stay with you for 2 weeks after the baby's born, fight for that, because you will need it and it's going to make a big difference, I'm sure.
Definitely. Anything that's going to give you a bit of comfort. Like, as you said, if it's your mum staying with you, if it's,
Or
you
your
know,
sister or whoever.
of course, then whatever's going to make you feel, more confident in yourself, or just give you that security. Because it's also hard, like handing your newborn over to someone, because it's like, it's a part of you. And
Yeah.
suddenly, like, it's like you're giving a part of your body to someone to look after. And I completely agree. You need someone who you can fully trust, who it helps if they've been through it before, exactly as you said, who, you know, if the baby cries, they know how to change a nappy, or they know how to feed, or to know when to wake you up to,
Mm-hmm.
you know, feed baby, depending on how you want to do it.
Yeah.
It's so important to just do what you're in survival mode. Whatever you need to do, whatever's going to make you feel better, do it.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know what you think about this part of not, and we will touch base about this in a little bit, because I want to touch base as well on social media and the impact that it has as well on
Yes.
maternity and everything.
Yep.
But I've seen as well, like a lot of people online, and I don't know, like I talk about something and then things pop up on my TikTok. But people criticizing women that hire maybe a night nurse or like a nurse during the day to help them with things. And I think it's like, well, if you can afford it, you don't have family around you, you don't have anything around you, why can't not we pay for someone to help us in the moment that we are most vulnerable and where we need the help the most?
100%. I mean, look how many CEOs have PAs, and you're like, okay, so what? If none of us are allowed PAs. If I can't have one, you can't have one. Like, again, if that's going to help you, if you can afford that, if you just need that bit of support, as I said, survival mode, do what you need to do. If I know there's lots of doulas out there who do night shifts, who can be with you for the whole process.
Mm-hmm.
You can have nannies, if you can have, you know, even if you drop your baby off at your mum's for a couple of hours, or you just need that time. I think what's sad is a lot of people who say things like that on social media don't have children.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, like if you've never been in that situation, you can't judge someone else at all.
Absolutely.
You don't know their circumstances. I mean, postpartum is hard, and I'm lucky enough to be close with my family, and I have a life partner. I have my husband who's with me too. For single mums, I
Yes.
take my hat off to them, because I don't know how you can do it on your own. And if you need someone to just step in and help you out, do it. Don't let other people judge you and go, oh, well, I did it, or I didn't do it way back when I had my baby 60 years ago. You know, we just had to deal with it. And it's like, okay, times have moved on.
Exactly.
People have their own needs. And if they, as you said, if they have the means to be able to do it and it helps them out, they're not hurting anyone from doing that. They're helping themselves. So
Yeah, because at the end of the day, you need to be kind of like as well the best you can be in order to be able to take care of that little human, right, that you have in front of you. Because if you are you haven't slept in weeks, and then you, as we said, the hormones are all over the place, and if you are not really able to take care of yourself or be good with yourself, how are you going to be able to take care of your baby, right?
Exactly. It's the same when you're in an aeroplane. Parents put on your oxygen mask before you put on your babies. You've got to be as good as you can. You've got to look after yourself to look after someone else. Because if you flake and I know that is a lot easier said than done, I will point that out, that is difficult. Because your priorities change. In your head, your priority is now your baby. But it is so important to take some time for yourself and to really just check in and go, okay, what do I need? Have I eaten today? Have I, when was the last time I showered? I just need 10 minutes, whatever you need to do. But it's so important to just check in with yourself and make sure you're doing okay to, as you said, be the best that you can be for your baby.
Yeah, because I believe, and as I said, we will be touching now in terms of the social media. Nowadays, there is so much content out there, right? You look for something that is like 1,000 tips, 1,000 things, but also kind of like creates that kind of expectation on how you should be acting and what you should be doing and how your life should look like after you have just given birth and how that postpartum should look like. That puts, I think, so much pressure on women. And then if your postpartum doesn't go the same way as X, Y, and Z influencers in Instagram or TikTok or whatever, you feel like, oh my God, am I a bad mom? Am I not doing the right things? And then I think like it helps grow that spiral that you just get in, right?
Yeah. No, 100%. I mean, I remember even when I was pregnant, like I remember watching the Kardashians or when Kate Middleton had a baby and they was like, look how trim she's got, so quick, the bounce back, the body back. It winds me up. And I remember being like, I'm very lucky I've never had any, issues with my weight or my body or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was pregnant, I was like, well, of course it's not real. They're celebrities, A lot of them have surgery. They have personal trainers, they have chefs, they have nannies, they have everything they could possibly want. And I remember I loved my body when I was pregnant. I've never felt more feminine than when I was pregnant.
I love that.
I loved it. Like, I liked getting big because I'd always wanted to be that big pregnant woman walking around, and I was so in admiration of my body when I was pregnant. And then I had my baby and I was still like, wow, like I remember once I've given birth and I had him, I was like, I did that. I was empowered. I was like, my goodness, I've just created life. Like, that's incredible. And then I looked at my body in the mirror and it's gone from this like plump, full of life body to suddenly very sad and deflated and empty, which you are empty because you haven't been on your own for the last 10 months and now suddenly you're on your own again. And I remember being like, I don't know who this body is anymore. And it was so different. I mean, my body shape still now is changed, but I remember being like, straight away, I was like, okay, how did Kim Kardashian look like that so quickly after a baby? And that you get it. And I was like, I wasn't someone who ever thought
You would be thinking that way.
Yeah. And I remember being like, oh, you still look pregnant after you've had a baby. Like your uterus doesn't suddenly contract in your back.
Mm-hmm.
It takes some time for your body and everything. I mean, my hips changed. I've got a whole different body shape to I did pre-baby. But it took me a while to be able to accept what my new body was. And it's that identity crisis of, okay, clothes that I've always worn or my go-to clothes that I'd pull out don't look the same on me anymore. And I would get frustrated and I was like, I don't know how to dress anymore. Like I'm 28 years old. How do I not know how to dress? I don't know what the fashion is. I don't know how to do this anymore. And you do start looking at, these celebrities who are back or magazines who are like, get back into your baby shape in 8 weeks or 10 weeks or something like that. And you're like, take a second and go, hold on. You've just spent the best part of 10 months growing. And they're telling you, okay, in 10 weeks, you've got to go back to what you were before. it's not realistic. And as I said, you need someone to go, they've got a personal trainer, they've got a nurse, they might have had surgery.
They had surgery.
Exactly. And you're like, okay, this isn't realistic. But you can see, if for someone who maybe already has body image issues, how much that can really impact someone. And it's hard, and it breaks my heart. I now see, when I see articles like that now, or celebrities, or online, TikTok, Instagram, when you see that now, I'm like, it breaks my heart, because if there's someone who's really not feeling great about themselves and they're already going through so much and they see that, it's just, again, it's added pressure. Like, it's not fair, and it breaks my heart to see it, because I know what it's like to be like, hold on, this isn't right. I should be back to, fit into my pre-baby jeans within 8 weeks.
Yeah, not a chance. And I think this is why it's important for us to have these conversations. And I'm like talking about the truth and exactly what happens, because we still see a lot of like this ideal life, ideal everything, and how everything should look like. Slowly, there is more people now creating content that is actually their reality, and we're starting to see more like, yeah, what actually does a post pregnancy body look like. I had never seen how the belly looks after you give birth, and how, as I said, like I have not given birth, so I don't know how it looks like how it feels. But you see them like touching their belly, and it's like, oh, that feels like, it must feel like weird, right?
Yeah, I remember the first time feeling my stomach. As I said, you've still got a bump. I don't know why, for years I thought, oh, you have the baby comes out, there's not going to be a bump anymore. But obviously, as I stretched, it takes some time. But it's weird to suddenly, because it goes from being so hard to very squidgy, like
Squishy.
jelly. And it's such a strange feeling. And you're like, well, like, it's so empty now, when you've been so big and feel like you're going to burst, and suddenly there's nothing there anymore. It's obviously, it's literally overnight. Like, it's so quick. You go from being pregnant to not being pregnant anymore.
Yeah.
It's a very strange.
Yeah, I don't know if you know, like Nia Sanchez, who was like Miss USA 2014 and first runner-up at Miss Universe. She has just given birth, and now she's like showing videos all the time about like how her body is changing now after giving birth. And then you just see like, yeah, you still have a belly. It's like, yeah, and I need to use these leggings because it's the only thing that kind of like fits me now. And this is how everything is going. And I love seeing that content, because it doesn't create that unrealistic standard for everybody to try to follow afterwards. And as you said, like, make you feel like shit.
Yeah, pretty much.
Basically, after.
Yeah. Need someone to show you, we have stretch marks, and stretch marks are okay.
Yeah.
Like, it's what happens when your body stretches. You get stretch marks.
Yeah. When you said like when your husband and your sister started noticing kind of like signs of what you were like, this could be postpartum, you went to your doctors.
Yes.
Again, as I said, like, I know nothing about where you go or anything like that, but is that the maternity unit that you go to see, or is that now your GP that you go to after having a baby? How does that work?
So, I didn't know where to go either. Again, I feel like, I'm sure if I looked back you get a lot of paperwork after you have a baby. Probably if I looked through, I could there's somewhere that says, here's where to go. But you don't have time. You don't have time to sleep, let alone read through, mountains of paperwork. But I know, I've written some really key numbers down that are really helpful for people. But I would definitely go to just call your regular GP. That's what I did. I was very lucky to get through to a lovely doctor who had actually seen me in my 8-week checkup. So I'd spoken to her before, knew I'd had a baby. We'd had that discussion. She'd seen me relatively recently as well, which was quite key for me, because when I then went to see her, she was like, I remember you from, 3-4 months ago. You can go to your midwife. I had a number for my midwife who was great, but I probably would go through the maternity unit, because you'd probably be more likely to get through to someone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
there's also a great foundation. It's called the Pandas Foundation. So they're really good, and they do pre and postnatal depression advice and support. They are great, and they are specific to pre and postnatal depression. They're really, really good. And there's also just where you would normally go if you were having mental health issues. So you've got MyK, who you can contact. You always have Samaritans if it's 24/7, because a lot of the helplines aren't 24, and a lot of the postpartum helplines also don't do weekends, as if mental health.
So if you it's like a 9 to 5, Monday to Friday.
Exactly. If you think you're suffering, or you're feeling down, or you're noticing a friend or someone is, feeling low, and it is a weekend or it's the middle of the night, you've got Samaritans who are fantastic. And you also have 111 option 2. So there is, no matter what time it is, what day it is, there's always someone who will speak with you, always. So you're never on your own, even if it's, as I said, middle of the night, it's a 3 a.m. feed, it's not gone great, you're just exhausted, you don't know what to do. There is always someone who will pick up the phone and talk to you, always. If it's a friend, family, anyone, if you can't get through and you've tried everything, there's always someone who will be at the end of the phone to speak to you, always.
That is amazing, because this is, as you have just mentioned, I don't think it comes to our mind that Mind UK, Samaritans, all of those mental health associations can help with postpartum, because at the end of the day, postpartum is also a lot mental health, right? We just feel like, oh, you just need to go to your gynecologist or your midwife or whatever to get advice or know what to do, or like even just to talk to. But we forget that, there is all of these other lines that can support women going through postpartum as well.
Yeah, and it's not just because it's specific to postpartum, as you said, they're not going to go, oh, this isn't the line for you. Call someone else. Like, as you said, if you just need someone to just talk to, if you just need a cry, if you just need someone to be like, what, I feel like I'm doing something wrong, and just someone to speak to. Yeah, and they're brilliant. They're trained as in helping, as you said, anyone with mental health issues.
Yeah.
Then no one's going to turn you away if it's postpartum. And also, if you do go to your GP and you choose to go through therapy, if you are postpartum, you are on a fast track. So they will put you as a priority, and they will get you into therapy as quickly as possible. So they're aware of it. Yeah, they will do as much as possible to get you seen as quickly as possible, which is also good, because I know a lot of people don't go to their GP for therapy because they're like, it's going to be months. But if you're postpartum, they fast track you.
That's great. Yeah. Because I mean, I know like the maternity services in the UK are now going under a review and checking things, because, lots of things had happened. I didn't have a great experience when I had my miscarriage last year with my maternity unit or anything like that. So it's good to know that, you can go to your GP. You don't need to go straight away to the maternity unit if you don't feel like whatever treatment you have that was the best. Sometimes I just feel like I should move up north or very down south, because they are the ones that have the best ratings for maternity units as of now. I know they're going under review.
Yeah. No, I think it is hard. There's always someone who has a bad experience. I had a couple of bad experiences pre-pregnancy and during my pregnancy as well. So it is scary, and it is hard, as you said, to go back to somewhere where you're like, well, you didn't help me out this time, so why are you going to help me out again? But as soon as you mention you're a new mum, or even if you're pregnant and you're struggling, I can't complain about the service that I've had and how quickly they deal with you. So if you've lost trust with one section, there are other options that you can choose to go through.
And that's amazing. So one thing that was very interesting to me is that you said that you got postpartum like 5 months into motherhood, right? Like real proper motherhood, right? Because I guess that you're in motherhood as soon as you're pregnant, but like proper motherhood, right?
Yeah.
5 months in, and always is that kind of notions as like, yeah, it's like a couple of weeks after you give birth. Maybe someone that had kind of like a traumatic birth experience, or maybe someone that went through a C-section didn't get to hold their baby, feeling not that connection or something like that. So can you talk us through a little bit more about what you've learned about postpartum, and how is it possible that it can happen at any point in the first year?
Yeah, it is scary, but I also didn't know that another thing to note, if you breastfeed and you choose to stop breastfeeding, your hormones take a big drop, or can take a big drop. So if you or a friend or a family member have recently decided to stop breastfeeding, just keep an eye on them, because that can be another point where someone's moods can start dropping because you have a new influx of hormones, because your milk starts drying up, and that comes with a whole new addition of hormones that changes your body.
Our body full
So
of hormones.
keeps going. Hormones are a fantastic thing. But I remember I suddenly got very anxious. I've always been an anxious person. I will admit that. Anyone listening who knows me, I'm a very anxious person.
Yeah.
But
I think it comes with project management anyway.
you're always worried about so many different things. You're risk mitigating your whole life.
Yeah.
That's a very good point, actually. But I remember when I decided so where it's sort of things people started noticing when I decided to give up breastfeeding, because I just found it exhausting, and mentally I was like, I just can't do this anymore. And we was like, okay, we'll start dropping breastfeeding and adding formula in. And I remember crying with mum guilt, like sobbing to my husband, if there's an apocalypse, I can't feed my baby. And my husband was like, there's not going to be an apocalypse. And I was like, but you can't guarantee me this.
Yeah.
This is where my brain went. And I went, if I can't breastfeed and we run out of formula, or there's a formula shortage, I can't feed my son. And he was like, but that's not going to happen. And I was like, but you don't understand. In my head, I was like, I can't, I've got to carry this on in case there's an apocalypse. And he sat down, and it took him a second, and he went, okay, if there is an apocalypse, what's going to make you feel better if you do stop breastfeeding? And it was that whole change. And I was like, I want to have options of formula in the house in case the formula he goes to he can't have, or he struggles with. Like, I need to have it there. I need to know what I'm doing. So he was like, okay, well, we'll carry on breastfeeding. And I started pumping, so I was storing my breast milk in case he didn't like formula or had issues with. So we had a storage of breast milk, and we practiced doing formula. And that's all I needed. And then I was like, oh. And then suddenly I'm like, oh, we've been on formula for so long. And, there wasn't an apocalypse. But in my head, that's just where my brain went. And I was like, I can't do this until I know that I can feed my son for however long, in case the world comes to an end. But someone going, but that's silly, like that's not going to happen, didn't help me. I just think,
I wouldn't have said that. I would have told you 100% there with you. Let's see what we need to do to make sure that, we're ready, because I literally my mind would have gone there as well.
Yeah,
literally.
Exactly. Worst case scenario. And it was just that my husband just going, okay, what's going to help you? What's going to make you feel better? And it was that, okay, not that block of going, get over it, you're going to be fine. Just, okay, what can we do to get you through this? So I noticed that, and it was my anxiety was getting quite bad. And then I was just crying. But I would just cry. There was no reason for me to cry. And it was around the same time that both me and my son got COVID in October. And it was the first time he'd been ill. And I had all this mum guilt. Come dark again. I had all this mum guilt of, well, when you breastfeed and your baby's ill, your body gives you antibodies to help your baby fight. And I was like, if I carried on breastfeeding, he wouldn't be ill. He wouldn't have COVID. He'd have my immunity. What have I done? Like, I've made a huge mistake. And it was too late by that point because my milk had dried up. And everyone was like, no, babies get colds. If they're breastfed, if they're not breastfed, babies get colds. Like, yes, your body does release those antibodies and it does help them, but that's not going to stop them from getting a cold. But it was things like that, and it was just sort of one thing after another. And I just remember being just so sad, but having the guilt of being like, I am very lucky. I have this baby who I, wanted for years. He's happy. He's healthy. I'm healthy. My husband's healthy. My dog's healthy. My family's healthy. What have I got to be upset about? And it was that other thing of sort of the guilt towards myself of feeling upset, of like, people can't have children and you're sat here crying with a healthy baby that, you're sat in a house, like you've got nothing here to be sad about. But I just couldn't help it. And I was just like, I don't know why I'm sad. I just feel really, really sad. And I still loved my son. He was what got me through. He would just make me laugh. He was so funny. I put him down for a nap and I'm like, it was just like I was empty, like a shell of a person.
Mm-hmm.
And like my husband was definitely like, I think, something's going on. Like, we'll keep an eye on it. He was like, what can I do to help you? He was always, what do you need? What's going to make you feel better? And I was like, I don't know. And it was so hard to have that. I need something, but I don't know what it is that I need. And I went to the doctor. He was like, why don't you, call your GP? And my sister went, 100%, go to your doctors, just talk to them. They're not going to turn you away.
Mm-hmm.
Go somewhere and talk to someone about how you're feeling. And again, I had this doctor who had seen me, as I said, to do my 8-week check with my son. And I just went, I don't know if I've got postnatal depression. And she was like, right, okay, talk to me, what's going on? And she sat there for longer than I know that she should have. But she listened to me of the silly little things about the apocalypse, about the guilt of, but why am I sad when I've got nothing to be sad about? And she went, okay, it does seem like, you're feeling low, you've got a bit of depression there. And she was like, okay, do you want medication? Do you want therapy? And I was like, I personally didn't want medication. I went, but I'll try therapy, someone to go into. And so I did NHS therapy. So, I mean, you can go private, but this was just the normal process that you go through with your doctor. And within a few weeks, just talking to someone who was a complete third party, doesn't know me, doesn't know anything about me, talking to someone and someone just saying, like, that's okay, like, it's okay to not feel okay. And as I said, saying, some people don't breastfeed, some people can't breastfeed. A fed baby is the best. Like, it's not breast is best, fed is best. And he was like, is your baby fed? Yep, so that's fine. Your baby is going to get a cold, that's normal. And it was just someone being like, how your brain currently is scary, but it would be for what you've just gone through. Like, again, with your hormones and with breastfeeding and with lack of sleep, and then we'd been unwell and so we hadn't slept, and then that was a whole new thing and it was a new routine. Like, as a project manager, I'm someone who is like, I need routine. Routine is what gets me through. I like to be organised. I like a list. I like a tick box. And with a baby, you can't have that. And it was kind of that letting go of feeling the need to always be in control and just go with the flow. I mean, if I say I go with the flow, anyone who knows me, they'll laugh in my face and they're like, yeah, I'm go with the flow with 3 weeks planning, okay. But you kind of have to, because you can't control what your baby's going through. And you can suddenly be like, okay, we've got this routine, and then your baby goes through a sleep regression, and then a tooth's coming through, and then they get unwell, and then they learn a new skill, and then you're like, okay, that doesn't work anymore. And it's that getting out of your head of needing to be rigid, needing to be perfect, needing to be, this has got to be done on this hour. And once, as I said, I sort of started letting go of that control, I started feeling so much better. And suddenly everyone noticed, like, I was like, your sparkle starts coming back. And my noticed it, and I was going out more. And then my husband, because I then would be like, well, I've got to stay because I'm a mum, I can't go out and do, I can't just go out with my friends anymore. My husband was like, why? I'm here, go out, like, have fun, like, you're still you. And I think it's so important to remember that you're still a person in yourself, you're not just mum. And that took me a while to be able to go, hold on, no, like, I was a person before I was a mum, and yes, being a mum now is obviously my most important job and the job I love the most, but I am still a person and I can still have some time away from baby to do things that I did previously, going out with friends or going bowling, going out for dinner, just having a break. You don't need to be mum 7.
Yeah, not lose your identity at the end of the day. I think that's with every mom that we've talked to, they've talked about this thing about like how you end up losing your identity and then you don't know who you are and it takes you a while to get back to who you are. So I guess for you going through that postpartum and having those conversations with the therapist kind of like help you not lose that identity and just get your spark back, right? I think I will struggle with that as well. Project manager as well, so I know exactly what you're talking about. Like I'm having the same situation now going through my IVF and everything, and it's just like it's hard to let go of the control. I don't know, do you have any tips to let go of control for people that are like project managers that like things done a
Yeah,
certain way and have to take lists and make plans for, you know, 3 weeks in the future?
yeah. No, I feel you, and it is hard. I think you've just got to. It is hard because even to this day, I'll still be like, but in my head, I've got a month meal plan of what we've got for the next week, and I've got a schedule of what's going to happen tomorrow. So it's still always there, and I will always have that. And
Mm-hmm.
you being exactly the same, that will always be there. You will always want that schedule. But it's adding in your flexibility. Get in your little tolerance, get your 10% tolerance either side. Just give yourself that. Just give yourself a second to go, okay, here's everything that I'm going through, or here's everything that's happened. What can I control? You can control what you eat, what you drink. You can control, your exercise, your as much as you can, relaxation, like your mental balance, like all of that you can control. I know exactly what it's like. It took us a while to fall pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
And it got to the point where I remember it got quite obsessive. You're doing all different types of tests all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, I've got to do this, but I've got to do this, because then that's 2 weeks and your whole life is on.
Yeah.
And it is really difficult, but it is just taking a second and going, okay, I can control this, so I'm going to focus on this. Everything here that I can't do anything about, I know it's there. I'm just not going to focus on it. I'm going to focus on these bits that I know that I can control. And I mean, we did everything. We had a fertility diet that I and my husband went on, what we drank, herbs, everything. I did seed cycling with different types of seeds.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, the one thing they say is you've got to relax. You've got to be.
Yeah, so easy to say, right?
Exactly. But it is hard, and I know exactly how your brain goes and how you want to be set and focused on everything. But try and focus purely on what you know that you can control. Try and leave, and it is a lot easier said than done. And I'm not going to take away the struggles of trying to separate your brain from it, but just really focus on what you can control, and just trust, and just trust your body, trust that whatever's going on in your head, it's going to work out. How it is meant to be will be. And I know it's a lot easier said than done, but I just became focusing on what can I control. Let's just put all my focus over here, so that here kind of disappears a little bit.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. I'll apply that, and I'm pretty sure like everybody that has had a baby will try to apply that as well. So before we finish, is there any advice or anything that maybe we have not touched on that you want to talk about?
My biggest bit of advice will be, just give yourself grace. Whatever you're going through, whatever your circumstances, just give yourself a second to be like, okay, let's check in. I don't always have to be perfect 100% of the time. Life is never perfect. It's not. And it's okay to not be okay and to reach out and ask for help. Never feel like anyone's going to turn you away because you're reaching out to someone. And also, this will pass is something, those 3 words become very important when you're really, really struggling and, you know, it's 3 o'clock with a colicky baby who won't go to sleep and you haven't slept for the last 3 nights. This will pass. It's not going to be like that. When you're in the dregs of having a newborn and they're crying every 2-3 hours, that will pass. Eventually your baby will sleep for longer. Eventually you will get a night's sleep. When you're going through a sleep progression and you're suddenly like, we're never going to sleep again, this will pass. Everything, teething, this will pass. When your baby gets unwell, it will pass. And knowing that you're not stuck and knowing that there is a way forward and there is that, you know, that progression, it always made me feel less trapped, because you can very quickly feel like you're trapped in a cycle when it's day after day after day. This will pass, I think, was really important for me. And I remember saying it to myself many a time when you're trying to get a baby to go back to sleep. Your baby will sleep through the night eventually. Your baby will eat when it needs to eat. Your baby will crawl when it needs to crawl. Just trust the process and go with it. And I know with how my brain works, that's a lot easier said than done. But if you can just say that to yourself, you can convince yourself, you know, we're not stuck here forever. You're not going to be day every single day. So this will pass. I think is very important.
Perfect. So you guys heard it. This will pass. Let's try not to focus too much on what we cannot control, and let's trust the process. So thank you so much, Emily, for coming to the podcast. I think this has been a really good conversation, and I really hope this helped many, many women that are going now through their first stages of motherhood.
I hope so. But thank you so much for having me. And as I said, if this helps one person just go, oh, I've never thought of that, or I'll give that a try, then I've done what I need to do.
Perfect. So if anybody wants to follow you, in case that you ever start, you know, giving us like motherhood tips and tricks, where can they find you?
Of course, Instagram is probably the best place to get me. It's just at Emily Live It. You'll see me. But yeah, if anyone, you know, you want to reach out, you want someone to speak to, someone who, you know, is a bit of a third party, doesn't know you, any tips, advice, someone you just want to speak to about anything. TMI doesn't exist when you're a mum and you're needing to talk about anything. So I'm always there to talk about anything and everything. So yeah.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, thank you everybody as well for listening to this episode and for listening to every single week's episode. We really appreciate you. Please make sure that you follow us on our socials at Females Thriving Over 30 on Instagram and TikTok. And please do not forget to vote for us for a British Podcast Award. We're going to leave all the information in the description of the episode, so we will really appreciate it if you could vote for us. And see you in the next episode.
I hope so. I suddenly just feel like I'm